There are certain players on every roster that fans don't fully appreciate until they're gone. The guys who don't always put up the biggest numbers. The guys who don't dominate headlines every week. The players who quietly do all the little things that make an offense work. And sometimes, the front office values those players a lot more than the public realizes. That's exactly why today's news caught my attention. Because while most of the conversation around the Steelers has been focused on other positions, Pittsburgh just made a major commitment to a player they clearly believe is a huge part of this team's future. And when you really look at what this move means, it tells us something very important about where this offense is heading over the next several years. The contract itself is interesting. The timing is interesting. But what might be most interesting of all is what this decision says about how the Steelers view their offensive identity moving forward. We're going to break down all of it in this video, including why this deal happened now, why the numbers may surprise some fans, and why the organization clearly sees this player as a much bigger piece of the puzzle than many people realize. But before we get into the details, I want to hear from Steelers Nation. When you first saw the news that Darnell Washington received this extension, what was your immediate reaction? Let me know in the comments. Darnell Washington is staying in Pittsburgh for the long haul, and the numbers attached to this new agreement reveal just how strongly the organization believes in his future role within the offense. According to the information discussed, Washington has agreed to a 4-year, $42 million extension with $21 million guaranteed, a deal that will keep him tied to the franchise for years to come. Rather than allowing one of their young offensive pieces to approach uncertainty down the road, the Steelers moved aggressively and secured a player they clearly view as a major part of what they want this offense to become moving forward. What immediately stands out about this extension is the value attached to it. When looking at the annual average, Washington will earn roughly $10.5 million per season on the new years of the contract. Considering where that places him among NFL tight ends, the deal comes across as a significant statement from the organization. The extension reportedly places him around the 12th highest-paid tight end based on annual earnings, while alternative calculations that include the remaining year of his rookie contract position him even lower in the rankings. Either way, the key takeaway is clear. Pittsburgh managed to secure a player they view as highly important without having to pay at the very top of the market. The reasoning behind the extension appears to go far beyond traditional receiving statistics. The discussion surrounding Washington focused heavily on the unique impact he brings to the offense. His size, physicality, and blocking ability were repeatedly highlighted as qualities that separate him from many players at his position. The belief is that when Washington is on the field, Pittsburgh gains an advantage in the running game because he effectively provides the presence of an additional offensive lineman while still occupying a tight end role. That combination is not easy to find, and it is one of the primary reasons the organization was willing to commit long-term money to him. At the same time, the extension is not based solely on blocking. While Washington is not being described as the primary route-running weapon in the tight end room, his value as a receiver remains an important part of the equation. He is viewed as a reliable option underneath, capable of serving as a check-down target while also creating problems once the ball is in his hands. His athletic ability for a player of his size was emphasized repeatedly, along with his power after the catch. The idea presented is simple. Defenders do not enjoy tackling him in space, and that creates another layer of difficulty for opposing defenses. Another aspect mentioned was Washington's ability near the goal line. His size creates matchup issues in the red zone, giving the offense another option when space becomes limited. When all these traits are combined, blocking, physicality, run-after-catch ability, and red zone usefulness, the result is a player the Steelers apparently believe offers a unique competitive advantage. That advantage is valuable enough that the organization decided it could not risk letting him get closer to the open market. The extension also provides a strong indication of how Pittsburgh envisions its offensive identity. One of the biggest themes connected to this move is personnel usage. The discussion repeatedly pointed toward heavy formations featuring multiple tight ends. By committing long-term money to Washington while already having Pat Freiermuth under contract, the Steelers are signaling confidence in a tight end-centered approach that could become one of the defining features of the offense. The expectation presented is that Pittsburgh will continue using 12 personnel extensively, especially on early downs. In that setup, Washington serves as the inline blocking force, while Freiermuth operates more as the receiving threat. The contrast between their skill sets is viewed as complementary rather than redundant. Instead of competing for the same responsibilities, each player brings something different to the offense, creating a partnership that can stress defenses in multiple ways. That may be one of the most important points emerging from this contract. The extension is not simply about rewarding an individual player. It is about preserving a pairing that the organization appears to believe can become one of the strongest tight end combinations in the league. Freiermuth offers receiving production, while Washington provides elite physical traits and blocking value. Together, they create flexibility that allows the offense to attack opponents through different styles and formations. The conversations surrounding the contract also connected Washington's future to broader roster construction. Several other young players were mentioned as potential extension candidates, including Joey Porter Jr. and Keanu Benton. However, the belief expressed was that Washington's deal should not prevent the Steelers from continuing to invest in other members of the young core. The reasoning is tied to how rookie contract extensions are often structured, allowing cap charges to remain manageable before increasing in future seasons. That approach gives the organization room to continue pursuing long-term agreements with additional players it wants to keep. Perhaps the strongest message from this development is organizational confidence. Teams do not hand out multi-year extensions worth tens of millions of dollars unless they believe a player is central to future plans. Every indication from the discussion suggests that Pittsburgh views Washington as exactly that. Rather than seeing him as a supporting piece, they appear to view him as a player capable of influencing how the offense functions on a weekly basis. His presence affects the running game, personnel groupings, protection concepts, short passing options, and red zone packages. Few players impact so many areas simultaneously. For that reason, the contract feels less like a reward for past performance and more like an investment in what the Steelers expect to become. The organization identified a player with a rare skill set, negotiated a deal that they believe represents strong value, and secured him for the foreseeable future. If Washington continues developing within the role envisioned for him, Pittsburgh may end up looking back at this agreement as one of the more important moves made in building the offense's foundation for the coming years. With Darnell Washington now locked in on a long-term extension and positioned as a major piece of the offensive future, do you believe this will prove to be one of the smartest contracts the Steelers have signed in recent years? Or do you think the team is taking a bigger risk than it appears at first glance? If you enjoyed this breakdown and want the latest Steelers news the moment it happens, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a like on this video. We're tracking every major development surrounding this roster, including potential updates on Keanu Benton, Joey Porter Jr., and any other moves that could impact the future of this team. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Was locking up Darnell Washington the right move? And how important do you think he'll be to this offense over the next several years? Thanks for watching, and don't leave yet. Click the video on your screen right now for more Steelers coverage. The fastest updates and biggest Steelers stories are waiting for you right here.